Hi guys, and welcome to another session of Honest Talk About Women, where you'll learn tips, tricks, and strategies on how to navigate the minefields of dating and relationships. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also comment in the comment section. If you've got a story you want to share with viewers, you can contact me. My email address listed below. So let's get right into it. So we're going to talk today about the marriage vows and how things can go pear-shaped down the track. So when a young couple marry, they say the marriage vows, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until parted by death. Beautiful words, very romantic, heartwarming, but do people actually understand what that means, especially for better, for worse? And it also comes down to people's tolerance levels today, which are far different from people's tolerance levels of about 50 years ago. So those vows can quickly go out the window when the harder stuff shows up. Very few can do the distance long term. Ideally, when you say those vows, the intentions are good, and the dream is to live happily ever after, both dying peacefully in your sleep, cuddled together after a peaceful and loving marriage of 70 years. But however, the reality is quite different. There's a lot of pull factors out there and a lot of things that can take you off the rails. So what tolerance level of poor health can your wife or husband tolerate? Everyone has a breaking point, and sometimes people can be on the extreme scale where you have a loving, caring type personality type that will be with you regardless of your ups and downs, of your bad days, your good days, of your good health, your bad health. They're usually from a loving, caring personality trait, often a kindergarten teacher, a nurse, or a caregiver. However, the majority of people have much lower tolerance levels, and what was tolerable 50 years ago is not tolerable today. When the going gets tough in a relationship, most people will put it in the too hard basket and say that the juice is not worth the squeeze. So it's always important when you're looking at running with someone is their previous body count, because when I say body count, that means the number of previous sexual partners. So if someone's got a high body count, there's a good chance they'll just come and go if there's any problems that encroach on their lifestyle. So obviously a person with a lower body count will most likely stick around with you a lot longer during the bad phases of your life. But as we all know, life can throw surprises, and we just don't know what's around the corner. People's mental health can go up and down, and some people, their personalities can change 180 degrees. You've been happily married for 20 years, and all of a sudden your wife, or if as a husband, they can change. And some people can change quite significantly. It's as though they've got a Jekyll and Hyde personality. They've just changed from Jekyll and now become Hyde. So sometimes someone can take a knock to the head, especially the front of the head, and they can change. Health experts call this the frontal dementia, an illness of the brain of the frontal lobes that causes neurological change. So if we show the picture of the brain, the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe. So the frontotemporal degeneration is one of the most common neurodegenerative dementia. It refers to a group of disorders that mostly affect the frontal and temporal lobes of the brain. These parts of the brain are used for language. They are also linked to personality and behavior. In frontal temporal degeneration, portions of the frontal and temporal shrink and neurons die. And there's no treatment for this. They haven't discovered anything. There's no medication that can solve this. And usually within 4 to 6 years, that person's dead. And this can be caused by a sudden brain injury. So there can be a respectable woman who's been in a car accident, or a respectable guy who's been in an innocent car accident, is in the wrong place at the wrong time. And from that point on, they act impulsively and become promiscuous. So some of the symptoms are inappropriate and impulsive behaviors, not acting considerate of others, repeating an activity over and over. So some people can be quite conservative throughout their life, and then all of a sudden they have a knock to the head, and it can affect them. And we've all heard that saying of people, oh, Jimmy's not been quite the same since he's had that knock to his head, or Lisa's not quite the same since she walked into that door, or had that door slam on her face. And it can affect you. So it can also go the other way too. It can go from a person who's been a tough cookie all their life, always stern and abrupt and dogmatic, to a very caring personality, sweetness and light. So it can change either way. And if you suspect that your wife or your husband has had a behavioural change after a knock to the head, then it's best to get checked out by a frontal dementia expert. Now, it's not to be confused with Alzheimer's disease. So frontal temporal degeneration usually occurs between the ages of 40 and 65. So you've been happily married for 20 years or 15 years, and all of a sudden your wife or your husband suddenly changes, their behavior changes. And it usually occurs between the ages of 40 and 65. With Alzheimer's, it's the most common form of dementia, but with frontal temporal degeneration, it's usually about 10% of dementia cases. So the memory loss develops later on. So they're quite coherent with the memory, but it gradually wanes and fades. Behavior changes are one of the first noticeable signs. And they can get lost in familiar places, and seeing or hearing things that aren't real is not common. So not to be confused with Alzheimer's, that's a completely different type of dementia. This is frontal temporal degeneration. So if you can do your distance with your wife, then that is very honourable. Most men and women don't have the patience or time, and often marriages end in divorce. So dementia can be very, very hard to live with, very, very hard. And it takes a person who has high tolerance for that type of behaviour to keep cohabitating in the same place. There can be a whole lot of health and safety issues that come in play. Someone with dementia can get up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking it's the start of the day, and they turn on the gas oven. They're forgetting to turn off taps, and forgetting to turn off gas, or if they do turn off the gas, the flames just go out, but the gas is still coming through. And if you're in an apartment block, there's all sorts of risks, especially the flooding issue, especially the fumes from the gas, and the fiddling with items continuously. So they may look at the fire extinguisher in the lounge or in the kitchen and think, hey, what's that? And they go up, pull out the pin, break out the safety valve, and then start turning it on, and it sprays everywhere. This is the sort of behavior that happens, and it can happen at 2-3 o'clock in the morning when you're fast asleep. So in some ways, it's very, very hard to stay with someone who has dementia, and in some ways a nursing home is best for them, where they get 24-hour care around the clock. So that's an option for a lot of people who can afford a nursing home. Some people don't have the money because it's quite expensive. It's about $70,000 a year. So and there's also other legal complications. You need to perhaps go into financial administration for that person because they can no longer comprehend what they're doing, and need to have a power of attorney or an enduring power of attorney. And a person's will is also important too. So these are the sort of things you need to get sorted. But the most important one is the prenup agreement. If you are going to get married, which I think is the best if you're going to have kids, then a prenuptial agreement is absolutely important. So if there's any complications down the track with health, and there's no wills, you can maybe fall back on the prenup agreement. But if there are wills in place, and depending on the legal jurisdiction you're in, then they'll ascertain who gets what at the end. So best to speak to a professional person, a lawyer, legal person who can offer professional advice in the will area and the financial administration area. And also really important up front, once you do marry someone, you have a prenup, because you just don't know what's around the corner, and life throws surprises, and people take various turns with their health, and it can be quite unexpected. They can receive a knock to the head, and it can cause all sorts of issues. So that's it for today, guys. If you want a comprehensive book on dating and relationships, I've got Alpha Dating that's on Amazon Kindle. It's a great buy. Do buy it. And so it helps navigate you through the minefield of dating and relationships. That's all for today, guys. Take care.